Welcome to this explainer. We're diving straight into a crash course on the core of human psychology. We're going to map out the incredible landscape of cognition and mental processes. Think of this as an introductory lesson into the very machinery that makes you, well, you. Let's get started.
Seriously, have you ever stopped to wonder how your mind actually works? I mean, really think about it. How do you go from just taking in a raw piece of information, like a sound or a quick image, to suddenly making a complex, life-altering decision based on it? It feels completely instantaneous, right? But there is this massive, invisible assembly line running in your head every single second.
So here is our roadmap for today. We're going to follow the journey of a single thought. We'll start with the psychology core of memory, then move into thinking and biases, explore language, and finally, look at defining and measuring intelligence.
Section 1. Memory, Storing and Retrieving.
We have to begin our journey with memory. It acts as the crucial input and storage system for absolutely everything you experience. Without it, the pipeline stops before it even starts. The Atkinson and Shiffrin information processing model actually compares your mind directly to a computer. Think of it like this. First, you have to encode the data. That's essentially typing it out on a mental keyboard. Then you move to storage, saving that file securely on your brain's hard drive. Finally, when you need that information for a test or just a random conversation, you execute retrieval, opening the file back up. If any one of these three steps fails, boom, the memory's lost.
Now, once it's stored, your long-term memory splits into two entirely different categories. On one side, we have explicit memory. These are the conscious facts and episodic events we can easily declare, like remembering your first day of high school or knowing that Paris is the capital of France. On the other side is implicit memory. This one operates completely under the radar. It's your unconscious motor skills and habits. Like knowing exactly how to balance on a bicycle or tie your shoes without having to consciously think about the mechanics of it.
If you've ever suffered from an encoding failure, where you just didn't pay enough attention to get the info into your brain in the first place, you know how frustrating it is. But you can use some effortful processing strategies to fix that. First, you can organize data into manageable units. This is called chunking, like breaking a 10-digit phone number into smaller parts. You can also use visual memory aids called mnemonics. And most importantly, for anyone studying for a big exam, you can use the spacing effect. Distributing your study time over multiple sessions yields vastly better long-term retention than just cramming it all in the night before. Seriously, ditch the all-nighter.
But hey, we need to remember that memories aren't exact video recordings saved securely on a disk somewhere. They are highly, highly fragile. Pioneering research by psychologist Elizabeth Loftus on the misinformation effect shows our brains actually reconstruct memories every single time we recall them. That means exposure to misleading information after an event can physically alter what we think we remember. You aren't just opening a static file, you're actively rebuilding the memory from scratch. And sometimes, well, you build it slightly wrong.
Moving on to Section 2, Thinking, Biases, and Decisions. Let's see how this pipeline builds. We're transitioning from just storing facts to actually processing and using them to make everyday decisions. When solving problems, our brains absolutely love efficiency, so we often use mental shortcuts called heuristics. But watch out, because these shortcuts can lead to major, systematic errors in our judgment. Take the availability heuristic, for example. We tend to estimate the likelihood of events based on how easily examples pop into our heads. Because plane crashes are highly publicized and dramatic, they are easily available to our memory. This makes many people fear flying way more than driving, even though car accidents are statistically far deadlier. We literally let the ease of memory override the actual data.
And this brings us to another huge obstacle to clear problem solving: confirmation bias. We all do it. We fall into the trap of aggressively searching out data that proves what we already believe, while entirely ignoring or dismissing the facts that contradict us. Instead of objectively weighing the evidence, we just look for the puzzle pieces that fit the picture we've already decided to build. It's a massive blind spot in our cognition.
Section 3. Language, Structure and Acquisition.
So, once we process our thoughts and navigate our own biases, we need a way to package these concepts for the outside world. That brings us to the incredible structure and development of language. Looking at our productive language milestones, it is truly marvelous how rapidly human beings develop the ability to communicate. By 4 months old, infants enter the babbling stage. By around 1 year, they hit the one-word stage, anchoring specific meaning to single sounds. And incredibly, by just their 2nd birthday, they're communicating in 2-word sentences. This is known as telegraphic speech, and it happens right before their vocabulary completely explodes into full grammar and sentences. Now, psychologists have constantly debated exactly how we learn this incredibly complex system so fast. Behaviorist B.F. Skinner argued it's entirely through operant learning. Basically, we learn language through basic imitation and reinforcement, like getting a big smile when we say mama. But Noam Chomsky countered that environmental reinforcement simply isn't enough to explain the rapid speed of language acquisition. He argued we are biologically pre-wired with an innate language acquisition device. Essentially, it's a built-in universal grammar system that just needs to be switched on by our environment.
And finally, Section 5, Defining and Measuring Intelligence.
So the crucial point here is with all of this complex memory encoding, problem solving, and rapid language learning happening, how do we actually measure the overall capacity of this mental machinery? When looking at general intelligence, researchers often distinguish between two distinct types as you age. First is fluid intelligence. This is your ability to quickly and logically solve completely novel problems. Think of it as your raw processing speed. This actually peaks in your youth and young adulthood. Second is crystallized intelligence. This is your accumulated knowledge, your vocabulary, and your life experience. Unlike fluid intelligence, crystallized intelligence tends to remain stable and grows significantly richer as you age.
Moving beyond just a single number, researchers suggest intelligence manifests in diverse ways. Howard Gardner proposed that we have 8 distinct modalities of multiple intelligences. This means you might not be a math genius, but you could have off-the-charts musical, spatial, or interpersonal abilities. Robert Sternberg grouped things a bit more tightly with his triarchic theory, suggesting intelligence is a triad. You've got analytical for academic problem solving, creative for adapting to new situations, and practical intelligence, which is essentially your everyday common sense or your street smarts. Still, when we do test these cognitive abilities formally, we often rely on standardized IQ tests. Modern intelligence tests are mathematically calibrated so that the absolute average score for the general population falls exactly at 100. This forms the absolute center of a normal distribution, or a bell curve. This allows psychologists to see exactly where any individual's cognitive performance lands relative to their peers. But, you can't just hand someone a random puzzle and call it an IQ test. To be scientifically fair and useful, tests must pass 3 strict guardrails. First up, reliability. It must consistently yield the same results if you take it again. Second is validity. It has to genuinely measure the specific thing it claims to measure, not just how good you are at taking tests. And finally, standardization. It absolutely must be administered and scored exactly the same way for everyone to ensure a fair baseline. To wrap up this explainer, I'll leave you with arguably the ultimate psychological debate: nature versus nurture. When we look at twin studies, we see a massive baseline role played by genetics, suggesting much of our cognitive capacity is inherited. Yet, we also see undeniable evidence that socioeconomic status, early childhood education, and even basic nutrition significantly shift intelligence scores over generations. So, looking back at the incredible pipeline of memory, thinking, and language we just explored, how much of your own intellect do you think was handed to you at birth, and how much of it did you build yourself? Think on that for a bit. Catch you next time.